I think it's very interesting how we talk about how research feeds into art. I sort of use research the same way that I use interesting objects or interesting sounds. I use it very flexibly, very loosely. I pick it up, and if it's interesting to me, it feeds into the work. Of course, I try to be respectful, and I try to understand the limits of what I might know about different disciplines, but I try to be very free and loose with it. So I don't think that I should try and do philosophy through you know my work. And what I'm very lucky in is that working with Tim as a collaborator, he doesn't feel that either. He really feels that we're just two people talking about life. And to talk about life is always to talk about time, because the meaning that we have in our life or the things that we're worried about is always related to time. And if we're going to try and think about the world that we live in, we have to think about time, which means hacking our brains to try and think along geological timescales as well as thinking along biological timescales and things like that. So that's my approach. I'm very flexible about it. To give you an example, the film that you saw on Glecht on Friday night is related to a big project I made. It's called Aisteach, or the historical documents of the Irish avant-garde. So it's a completely fictional rethinking of Irish musical history. And for that project, I had to do some research because I had to make sure if people existed, I wasn't leaving them out. You know, I wasn't ignoring them, because sometimes there might be somebody hidden away that you don't know about. But also, when I did the research and realized I'm not finding any evidence of Irish Dadaists, for example, and there's very clear reasons for that, to do with an oppressive church, colonization by the British, poverty. That mean, of course, Dadaism doesn't have a big middle class to emerge from. But at the same time, the research threw up really bizarre things that allowed us, that they were stranger than fiction, we would say in English. So for example, the British Army did a PSYOPs campaign in the north of Ireland between 1972 and 1974, where they tried to connect satanic worship with terrorism in an effort to dissuade the youth from getting involved in terrorism. And I could never make that up. It's so bizarre and so strange. But the research gives me, I find this and I read about it, and that feeds back into our idea of how we position noise music having been invented in Ireland. So it's sort of, so the research is there as sort of a tool to give us ideas. So I think of it, rather than I do the research to then demonstrate the research to you, I use the research to find ideas, you know, rather than actual facts, if that makes sense. So that's the way I think about it.
It's how it appears actually during the research.
Exactly, because if you read, if you find, okay, there's this, you know, there's all this documentation of this strange PSYOPs campaign, and you know they actually made fake black mass sites, you know, with like a dead sheep and like sort of magic circles in the sand, and straight away you think, what if there was music playing at that site? And that sort of then retroactively you say, okay, we want to make the music that would fit. You know, what would they have picked to leave playing at that site so that people would feel something bad and evil had happened here? And so that's how noise music is invented in Ireland.